Hello everyone. Ni here. Today I will be talking about communicating. You would have figured out what will be today's topic: communication. Communication is fundamental to the existence and survival of humans as well as to an organization. It is a process of creating and sharing ideas, information, views, facts, feelings, etc. among the people to reach a common understanding. Communication is the key to the directing function of management. A manager may be highly qualified and skilled, but if he does not possess good communication skills, all his ability becomes irrelevant. A manager must communicate his directions effectively to the subordinates to get the work done from them properly. It is very relevant and vital to talk about it and know its importance. So, let's go through the agenda for today. Firstly, I will explain the meaning of communication, what all elements are included for communication to happen, what all types of communication can be used to deliver our message, what is the process to communicate, the important 7 Cs of communication, what are the barriers that we face while communicating, and importance of communication. Let us start with definition. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. Every communication involves, at least, one sender, a message, and a recipient. This may sound simple, but communication is actually a very complex subject. The transmission of the message from sender to recipient can be affected by a huge range of things. These include our emotions, the cultural situation, the medium used to communicate, and even our location. The complexity is why good communication skills are considered so desirable by employers around the world. Accurate, effective, and unambiguous communication is actually extremely hard. Elements of communication. Sender. The sender is the one who wishes to communicate an information he has to another person, group, or place. Without sender, the communication channel will not start. He is the one who chooses the medium through which he wants to convey the message. He will choose the receiver of it, and he will also choose the way of encoding the message. Receiver. Receiver is the one who gets the message sent by the sender. This person receives the message and decodes it according to his own understanding, perspective, and situation. It is very important that the person receive the message in the same sense as meant by the sender, only then the communication can be useful. Message. Message is the set of information, data, knowledge that is being transferred from one person to another. Message must be encoded and decoded in the required sense so as to make the communication successful. Medium. Medium is the means through which the message is shared. Selection of medium is a very integral decision that has to be made for transferring of message. Selection of medium depends on various factors like choice of sender, receiver's characteristics, message importance, message type, urgency, reliability, feasibility, etc. Types of communication. Verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of language to transfer information through speaking or sign language. It is one of the most common types, often used during presentations, video conferences, and phone calls, meetings, and one-on-one conversations. Verbal communication is important because it is efficient. It can be helpful to support verbal communication with both nonverbal and written communication. Verbal communication can be divided into two parts, i.e. formal communication and informal communication. Formal communication. Formal communications are the one which flows through the official channels designed in the organizational chart. It may take place between a superior and a subordinate and a superior, or among the same cadre employees or managers. These communications can be oral or in writing and are generally recorded and filed in the office. Formal communication may be further classified as vertical communication and horizontal communication. 1. Vertical communication. Vertical communications, as the name suggests, flows vertically upwards or downwards through formal channels. Upward communication refers to the flow of communication from a subordinate to a superior, whereas downward communication flows from a superior to a subordinate. Application for grant of leave, submission of a progress report, request for loans, etc. are some of the examples of upward communication. Sending notice to employees to attend a meeting, delegating work to the subordinates, informing them about the company policies, etc. are some examples of downward communication. 2. Horizontal communication. Horizontal or lateral communication takes place between one division and another. For example, a production manager may contact the finance manager to discuss the delivery of raw material or its purchase. Types of communication networks. Informal communication. Single chain. In this type of network, communications flows from every superior to his subordinate through a single chain. Will. In this network, all subordinates under one superior communicate through him only. They are not allowed to talk among themselves. Circular. In this type of network, the communication moves in a circle. Each person is able to communicate with his adjoining two persons only. Free flow. In this network, each person can communicate with any other person freely. There is no restriction. Inverted V. In this type of network, a subordinate is allowed to communicate with his immediate superior as well as his superior's superior also. However, in the latter case, only ordained communication takes place. Informal communication. Any communication that takes place without following the formal channels of communication is said to be informal communication. The informal communication is often referred to as the grapevine, as it spreads throughout the organization and in all directions without any regard to the levels of authority. The informal communication spreads rapidly, often get distorted, and it is very difficult to detect the source of such communication. It also leads to rumors which are not true. People's behavior is often affected by the rumors and informal discussions, which sometimes may hamper the work environment. However, sometimes these channels may be helpful as they carry information rapidly and, therefore, may be useful to the manager at times. Informal channels are also used by the managers to transmit information in order to know the reactions of his/her subordinates. Types of grapevine network. Single strand. In this network, each person communicates with the other in a sequence. Gossip network. In this type of network, each person communicates with all other persons on a non-selective basis. Probability network. In this network, the individual communicates randomly with other individuals. Cluster network. In this network, the individual communicates with only those people whom he trusts. Out of these 4 types of networks, the cluster network is the most popular in organizations. The other main type of communication apart from verbal communication is nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is the use of body language, gestures, and facial expressions to convey information to others. It can be used both intentionally and unintentionally. For example, you might smile unintentionally when you hear a pleasing or enjoyable idea or piece of information. Nonverbal communication is helpful when trying to understand others' thoughts and feelings. There are various ways through which one can communicate nonverbally. They are as follows. Gestures. If you fail to gesture while speaking, you may be perceived as boring, stiff and unanimated. A lively and animated teaching style captures students' attention, makes the material more interesting, facilitates learning and provides a bit of entertainment. Head nods, a form of gestures, communicate positive reinforcement to students and indicate that you are listening. Gestures are movements of the arms, legs, hands, and head. Some authors opine that gesture is the deliberate body movement as because they express specific and intentional meaning. Posture. You communicate numerous messages by the way you walk, talk, stand and sit. Standing erect, but not rigid, and leaning slightly forward communicates to students that you are approachable, receptive, and friendly. Furthermore, interpersonal closeness results when you and your students face each other. Speaking with your back turned or looking at the floor or ceiling should be avoided, it communicates disinterest to your class. Eye contact. Eye contact, an important channel of interpersonal communication, helps regulate the flow of communication. And it signals interest in others. Furthermore, eye contact with audiences increases the speaker's credibility. Teachers who make eye contact open the flow of communication and convey interest, concern, warmth, and credibility. Body language. Body language is another widely recognized form of nonverbal communication. Body movements can convey meanings and message. Body language may take two forms of unconscious movements and consciously controlled movements. Space proxemics. A spacious and well-decorated room indicates a person's position in the organization hierarchy, and external people gets a message about his importance and authority only by visiting his room. Distance is another communication tool, which expresses the degree of intimacy and individual acceptance. Cultural norms dictate a comfortable distance for interaction with students. You should look for signals of discomfort caused by invading students' space. Some of these are rocking, leg swinging, tapping, gaze aversion. Typically, in large college classes, space invasion is not a problem. In fact, there is usually too much distance. To counteract this, move around the classroom to increase interaction with your students. Increasing proximity enables you to make better eye contact and increases the opportunities for students to speak. Touch. Touch is a widely used form of nonverbal communication tool. By touching, one can express a wide range of emotions. However, the accepted modes of touch vary depending on the gender, age, relative status, intimacy, and cultural background of the persons. Symbol. A symbol is something which represents an idea, a physical entity or a process but is distinct from it. The purpose of a symbol is to communicate meaning. Process of communication. Communications is a continuous process which mainly involves three elements, viz. Sender, message, and receiver. The elements involved in the communication process are explained below in detail. 1. Sender. The sender or the communicator generates the message and conveys it to the receiver. He is the source and the one who starts the communication. 2. Message. It is the idea, information, view, fact, feeling, etc. that is generated by the sender and is then intended to be communicated further. 3. Encoding. The message generated by the sender is encoded symbolically, such as in the form of words, pictures, gestures, etc. before it is being conveyed. 4. Media. It is the manner in which the encoded message is transmitted. The message may be transmitted orally or in writing. The medium of communication includes telephone, internet, post, fax, email, etc. The choice of medium is decided by the sender. 5. Decoding. It is the process of converting the symbols encoded by the sender. After decoding, the message is received by the receiver. 6. Receiver. He is the person who is last in the chain and for whom the message was sent by the sender. Once the receiver receives the message and understands it in proper perspective and acts according to the message, only then the purpose of communication is successful. 7. Feedback. Once the receiver confirms to the sender that he has received the message and understood it, the process of communication is complete. 8. Noise. It refers to any obstruction that is caused by the sender, message, or receiver during the process of communication. For example, bad telephone connection, faulty encoding, faulty decoding, inattentive receiver, poor understanding of message due to prejudice or inappropriate gestures, etc. 7 Cs of communication. The 7 Cs of effective communication, also known as the 7 principles of communication, are a useful way to ensure good and business communication. The 7 Cs of effective communication provide a useful checklist as a result of which both written and verbal communication pass off in a clear, plain, target group-oriented, and well-structured manner. Completeness. The communication must be complete. It should convey all facts required by the audience. The sender of the message must take into consideration the receiver's mindset and convey the message accordingly. Conciseness. Conciseness means wordiness, i.e., communicating what you want to convey in least possible words without foregoing the other Cs of communication. Conciseness is a necessity for effective communication. Consideration. Consideration implies stepping into the shoes of others. Effective communication must take the audience into consideration, i.e., the audience's viewpoints, background, mindset, education level, etc. Make an attempt to envisage your audience, their requirements, emotions as well as problems. Ensure that the self-respect of the audience is maintained and their emotions are not at harm. Modify your words in message to suit the audience's needs while making your message complete. Clarity. Clarity implies emphasizing on a specific message or goal at a time, rather than trying to achieve too much at once. Concreteness. Concrete communication implies being particular and clear rather than fuzzy and general. Concreteness strengthens the confidence. Courtesy. Courtesy in message implies the message should show the sender's expression as well as should respect the receiver. The sender of the message should be sincerely polite, judicious, reflective, and enthusiastic. Correctness. Correctness in communication implies that there are no grammatical errors in communication. Barriers to communication. The communication barriers may prevent communication or carry incorrect meaning due to which misunderstandings may be created. Therefore, it is essential for a manager to identify such barriers and take appropriate measures to overcome them. The barriers to communication in organizations can be broadly grouped as follows. Semantic barriers. These are concerned with the problems and obstructions in the process of encoding and decoding of a message into words or impressions. Normally, such barriers result due to use of wrong words, faulty translations, different interpretations, etc. For example, a manager has to communicate with workers who have no knowledge of the English language, and on the other side, he is not well conversant with the Hindi language. Here, language is a barrier to communication as the manager may not be able to communicate properly with the workers. Psychological barriers. Emotional or psychological factors also act as barriers to communication. The state of mind of both sender and receiver of communication reflects ineffective communication. A worried person cannot communicate properly and an angry recipient cannot understand the message properly. Thus, at the time of communication, both the sender and the receiver need to be psychologically sound. Also, they should trust each other. If they do not believe each other, they cannot understand each other's message in its original sense. Organizational barriers. The factors related to organizational structure, rules and regulations, authority relationships, etc. may sometimes act as barriers to effective communication. In an organization with a highly centralized pattern, people may not be encouraged to have free communication. Also, rigid rules and regulations and cumbersome procedures may also become a hurdle to communication. Personal barriers. The personal factors of both sender and receiver may act as a barrier to effective communication. If a superior thinks that a particular communication may adversely affect his authority, he may suppress such communication. Also, if the superiors do not have confidence in the competency of their subordinates, they may not ask for their advice. The subordinates may not be willing to offer useful suggestions in the absence of any reward or appreciation for a good suggestion. Importance of communication. 1. The basis of coordination. The manager explains to the employees the organizational goals, modes of their achievement and also the interpersonal relationships amongst them. This provides coordination between various employees and also departments. Thus, communications act as a basis for coordination in the organization. 2. Smooth working. A manager coordinates the human and physical elements of an organization to run it smoothly and efficiently. This coordination is not possible without proper communication. 3. Basis of decision making. Proper communication provides information to the manager that is useful for decision making. No decisions could be taken in the absence of information. Thus, communication is the basis for taking the right decisions. 4. Managerial efficiency increased. The manager conveys the targets and issues instructions and allocates jobs to the subordinates. All of these aspects involve communication. Thus, communication is essential for the quick and effective performance of the managers and the entire organization. 5. Increases cooperation. The two-way communication process promotes cooperation and mutual understanding amongst the workers and also between them and the management. This increases the cooperation between them and thus work done is quick and accurate. 6. Organization harmony. Communication leads to clarification and that leads to less friction and thus leads to industrial peace in the factory and efficient operations. We can say communication is the key to organizational harmony. 6. Boosts morale. Good communication helps the workers to adjust to the physical and social aspect of work. It also improves good human relations in the industry. An efficient system of communication enables the management to motivate, influence and satisfy the subordinates, which in turn boosts their morale and keeps them motivated. So, we have covered almost all the subtopics that come under the title of communication. I hope this will help you in your professional as well as personal lives. Thank you.